Mike Barrett along with Mike Rice, along with the head coach of the Trailblazers, Terry Stotts, for a segment or two. Coach, thanks for coming into the studio. We appreciate that. We like you on the phone, but we like you better here.
Well, I enjoy your company better in person than on the phone as well.
Like you don't see enough of us.
I don't see you. You know, I go up and hide in a room while I'm on the phone with you guys. So I don't know what visuals are up there. I don't know what you're showing. I don't know if you're rolling your eyes at me. I don't know what coach is doing.
Yeah.
So I'd
don't
rather
want to know.
I want to do this face to face so I can cover myself.
Right. Talk about the game against the Lakers. Another one of those fourth quarters that Damian just kind of took it over, and we've become used to seeing that. But playing shorthanded as you have been and continue to find ways to win, that's the most important thing.
Well, it's I don't know if comforting is the right word, but I've been very pleased with the different guys who have been able to step into their roles and play well. And whether it's Chris now as a starter, Alan Crabb has had his moments. C.J. Thomas, Myers is playing well. Darrell Wright has had an impact in a lot of these games, even though he may not have a line in the box score that's impressive. His presence on the court makes a difference. So, and then to always have LaMarcus and Damian and Wes and Nick is, having those four guys always there makes a difference.
Looking at new faces coming in, it's a little earlier this year. Trade deadline's the 15th. These teams seem real nervous, some of the in the West, adding new faces. Do you see that it hurts or helps teams when they add new faces right in the middle like this rather than depend on your own guys to pull you through?
Well, I think every team does what they need to do for their roster. Memphis, Zach Randolph's been bothered by, I believe, a knee, and he's missed some games, and he's an integral part of what they do. And Jeff Green can play some minutes at 4 and gives them a little bit more scoring. And so, like I said, I think every team does what they need to do according to their roster and health and record and all those things. I don't know if it's necessarily an arms race in the West, but certainly when you have a chance to make your team better, and you win in this league with talent, there's no question. And when you can add proven veteran talent to your roster at the midway point of the season, you have enough time to figure things out.
Joel Freeland was talking earlier with the media today about his shoulder and when he'll be back, and we continue to talk to Robin about that. You were talking about guys who have stepped up, and Myers Leonard has had a few good games in a row where he, getting the opportunity, playing under control. Seems like the game has slowed down for him a little bit. There was the big 12-12 game that he had, but and he made some mistakes in the following game, the Orlando game, we all know. But against the Lakers, went out under control. He's getting the rebounds he should get. He's having a good effect on the game. He's hitting the occasional three. What are your thoughts on his development?
Well, you pretty summed it up. You pretty much summed up the whole thing.
Like Ryan Wheeler. Question.
No, you really said that, huh? I've been pleased with Myers, and really, I think the Laker game here, when he played, I didn't intend on playing him the whole fourth quarter, but Lakers were hurting us with offensive rebounds, and he ended up, I believe, getting six defensive rebounds in the fourth quarter, and the Lakers didn't have one offensive rebound. So it's nice when he makes a shot, whether it's a 3 or a 2, or I think that's good for his confidence. Everybody likes to see the ball go in the basket, but what he's been able to do defensively and rebounding the ball is the reason he's staying in the games, because that's where I think that's been the area where he's needed to grow the most. For any of those young guys, they're not going to necessarily come in and make a huge impact on the offensive end because we have a lot of ways to score the ball. But when they make their occasional shots, but more importantly, when they defend and we're not hurt at the defensive end, in Myers' case, being able to rebound, that keeps them on the floor a little bit longer, especially with Rolo and Joel being out.
Now, speaking of Rolo and Joel being out, how much does your defense miss them? Your defense just seemed to be really coming together when those two were there, and then they got injured. And how do you feel since then?
I think it's been good. We haven't played necessarily the higher octane offensive teams in the league in their absence, but I do think that the system that we have in place over the last year and a half now, the fact that we have the continuity of 13 players coming back, everybody understands. The younger players are getting better. You look at young players like Allen and CJ and even Myers, the growth that they've made at the defensive end. I think they're able to come in and have the same, not necessarily the same impact, but understand what we're trying to get accomplished and be able to do it. The one guy I think doesn't get enough credit for his defense is LaMarcus. I think everybody looks at him as a scorer and obviously being the franchise player, but what he has done continually since I've been here, really, at the defensive end, I think has been overlooked. He's very communicative on the court. He knows the coverages. He knows personnel. He talks to the young guys. He takes difficult matchups when we need him to, and he takes advantage of that. We're playing against Dwight Howard if we need to do that. So I think having him as a stabilizing influence on the interior makes it easier for those other guys to step in. And now I think he and Chris are playing better alongside each other, and he and Myers are playing better alongside each other. And in large part because of what LaMarcus brings.
I was going to ask you, what type of team gives your Blazer defense the most kind of trouble? Is it the quicker guards like Conley? Is it the inside play of maybe a Duncan?
That's difficult to say. I think that the challenging part for any team really is trying to minimize another team's strengths. And so, some teams really get to the basket off dribble penetration. Some teams like Dwight Howard have a post presence. Some teams get out and run in transition. Some teams overpower you inside. So I think teams are good at what they do, and our challenge is not necessarily is to minimize their effectiveness. And some nights it's dribble penetration gives us trouble. Sometimes offensive rebounding gives us trouble. Sometimes they get out in transition. So I don't know if it's necessarily one thing in particular. I know we emphasize keeping the ball away from the basket. That's the most challenging part for us, and whether that's transition, offensive putbacks, dribble penetration to the lane, pick and rolls in a variety of ways. But that's our number one concern, is trying to keep the ball away from the basket.
Been a lot of impressive stats for your team, and when the Laker game gave you guys a 7-1 record in the second of back-to-backs. And we all know how difficult back-to-backs are in the NBA, especially when there's travel involved. What do you emphasize on the second night of a back-to-back? Do you change anything? I mean, is it all mental? And how do you manage the physical demands of the game, especially in a back-to-back? You got another tough one coming up the end of this week.
Well, I think the players really do a good job managing their bodies and their approach. I really don't even, honestly, when we are playing a team that's playing on a back-to-back, I don't even bring up the fact, hey, they're playing on a back-to-back, they're tired, we got to run, pick up the tempo, because I think subconsciously, then we're thinking that the other way.
Right.
We never even bring up the fact whether we're playing on a back-to-back or another team's playing on a back-to-back. We approach the game as we would any other game.
Looking at 15 years ago in the NBA, do you have to watch the players as much today as 15 years ago? Do players manage their time and their diets better today than they did in the past?
I don't think there's any question. I think the players of today, the things that they have at their disposal is, they have more information. They have better facilities. They have the best of everything, and as opposed to 15 years ago, the weight facilities, just the fact that we're able to travel and make things, the practice facilities are incredible. And I think the players today are very, very diligent about the work that they put in for the team, but more importantly for themselves and taking care of themselves. I think they take care of themselves over the summer. I think it's just they understand how much is at stake. I think today's players with social media and they're just more, more evolved. There's a better understanding than back when you were a kid and back when I was a kid. It's just everything just seems to it seems like young players.
Night.
Yeah, it seems like young players are much more aware of things.
I still remember, I think Zach Randolph's second year, we were in San Antonio on the team bus getting ready to head out, and Zach Randolph came out, went across the street, and just had this bag of McDonald's, bag and a half, got on the bus, ate it on the way to the game. So that doesn't happen anymore, and that wasn't that long ago.
Well, I would say over half the players in this league made it this league by not eating very well. But I do think that they're open to how important nutrition is, and how important sleep is, and how important taking care of your body is. And as far as our guys are, they're going to have they're going to have their fried food and some food that may be fast food and things like that. But I think in general, they take the information to heart and are better for it.
What's the magic secret of a guy like Lillard? I mean,
you tell me. I don't know.
Weber State. I mean, I watch him out on the court, and I've been around the Blazers 25 years, and I just see things that I've never seen before. He's determined to see.
Well, you guys have been around him a lot as well, and you see the determination, you see the drive, the confidence. I don't know if it's necessarily a chip on his shoulder, but he has a nice blend of confidence, determination, and
maybe maturity.
Well, maturity, that
on the court maturity.
Yeah, but that came in even in his rookie year. That was so noticeable that I think we almost take that for granted. And being in your third year, you almost expect players to mature. But his maturity as a rookie was very impressive. But I think his drive and determination and he loves the moment.
Yeah,
he loves the moment.
Chemistry. Getting involved, him and LaMarcus, everyone keeps looking, but they work so well together. If one's hot, he gets the ball all the time. The other one just steps aside, and it just seems the maturity between those two are amazing.
I think they both, obviously they play very well together, but I think they both read the game well. They read each other well. They read their teammates well. And if Damian has it going, he doesn't forget a lot about LaMarcus and vice versa. It's a team game, and I think there is an awareness and a concern for each other that makes it better for the team.
All right, we'll take a quick break. The head coach Terry Stotts with us here on Trailblazers Courtside. Back with more right after this. The head coach Terry Stotts with us inside our Moda Center studios. Coach, 30-8, and we've been kind of tracking this year. We do this, and I imagine you a little bit do. You kind of compare it to last year's start, and ahead now. 29-9 was the record last year. 29-8 is the record now. And there's been some talk about
30. You cheated.
30 sorry. Yep. And we've talked a lot about the close of last year and how things leveled off a little bit, and the players have talked a lot about that. Have you guys placed an emphasis on the rest of the way now and maybe not being satisfied with a quick start? And I don't think last year had, there was a lot of factors. Joel Freeland got hurt. LaMarcus spent some time down. How much emphasis have you placed on continuing maybe to not play the record? Stay as hungry as you've been to this point?
It's one thing I don't think we've necessarily had to address it per se. My concern right now, and you've been around long enough, the time between New Year's and the All-Star break is a time where, to me, those are kind of the dog days, because after the All-Star break, you're invigorated, you're refreshed, you can see the end line, and you just kind of plow through the rest of the season. So we've talked about staying focused during this stretch and how important it is. We really haven't addressed it as compared to last year, but I know everybody knows it, but I don't think we've emphasized it. We've really tried to stay away from comparing last year, whether it's record or what we did last year. One, I don't think it's fair to Steve and Chris because they weren't part of that. We're a new team. I think it might have been Coach Popovich, but going into each season this is a new team. Whether you have a lot of guys back, it's a new team, it's a new challenge, and treat it like that rather than comparing things to last year. Obviously, it's easy to do. Last year had a different feel to it than this year. I like where we're going. I like our professionalism. I like our demeanor, how we're carrying ourselves during the course of a game, during the course of the season. We have great preparation. The players are locked in on whatever the preparation is for the next game. But it's important for us to, and this is 2.5 years now, is next game. And I overheard you talking about this coming week, but our concern is the Clippers, and it's not what happened last year or last week. Our concern is the Clippers.
You mentioned Chris Kaman. He was a little nervous about putting in that starting lineup because he had a nice niche, a nice role with that second unit. How do you feel he's done so far?
You know, I see him getting a bit more acclimated to playing with those guys. You know, playing with those four guys, you don't want to screw things up, and he's not getting the same type of touches. Offensively, it's different because now he's trying to be a part of that unit rather than in the second unit he got his post-ups and we relied on his scoring. I think he's shown progress. I thought the last game he's played, I was pleased that he played 32 minutes and really didn't look too fatigued. I was surprised, actually. I tried to keep him under 30 minutes, that he played the 32. He likes being out on the court. He likes, just like a lot of guys, he likes finishing games, and I think this was somewhat a blessing in disguise in that he's able to play with, get more minutes with LaMarcus and get more minutes with those other guys, and get a feel on how it is to play with that group as well.
Will there be a decision that when Rollo or Freeland come back, because Chris feels so comfortable with that second unit, will he probably be going back there?
You know, I never like painting myself in a corner, but in all likelihood, when Rollo comes back, he'll be the starter, and when Joel comes back, whenever that is, I think we'll see him practice and see how the team's going. But I think it's difficult to say what's going to happen 2 or 3 weeks from now.
When training camp starts every season, we hear lots of things from coaches, and oftentimes those things are forgotten pretty quickly, or there are things that every year we hear, so the eyes kind of glaze over. You talked about defense, three-point defense, transitional defense. To have the number one scoring defense in the NBA at this point, that's got to make you pretty happy, because I know the emphasis you placed on that when training camp began. So, and I get asked by other broadcasters all the time, what's been the key? What's been the difference between last year's defense and this year's defense to get you the impressive numbers you have had so far, holding teams to 96 a game, I think it is now. Yeah. What, in your eyes, has been the big difference? What's been the key?
Well, and you've probably heard me answer this a few times, but I think it's a variety of things. One is it didn't happen just overnight, like last year to this year. I think the second half of the season last year, we were a top 10 defensive team, and that fact kind of got lost in last year's message of what we did last year. Secondly, and most importantly, I think the players and coaches made a commitment coming into this season. When we lost to San Antonio last year, I don't think any of us sat back and said, wow, that was a great year. I think most of us were disappointed that the season ended the way it did and realized what we want to do to improve on this. And it was about getting better rather than resting on our laurels. I think we've developed a defensive system that has grown over the last year and a half that everybody is comfortable with, that understand it, and there's a commitment to the system, and it makes it easy when the young guys know it, because learning defense in this league is harder than offense. Everybody looks at points and rebounds, but learning how to play NBA defense is a tough thing. So I think all our young guys have gotten better. You add Steve and Chris, who understand the league and have added a defensive component. That makes us better. I think lastly, and I kind of touched on it, but the continuity of people being here now, sometimes the first year we had a different system, but being here for a year and a half and understanding things makes the growth that much easier and better to sustain.
Speaking of defense and offense, Warriors, best record in the NBA. Is it because of their offense or their very good defense?
Both. I mean, you don't have the best record in the NBA by not being good at both, and that's why we have the record we do. I mean, we're in the top 10 in both, and one of our goals, and one of my goals always, as long as I've been in the NBA, is when you're with a good team, is to be in the top 10 in both. When we're in Seattle, we're in Dallas, that was the goal, be in the top 10 in both, because that puts you in a position, you're in championship discussion if you're in the top 10 in both. If you have flaws, then they can be exploited. But you talk about Golden State; they have a dynamic offense. Their defense has been good for the last few years, and when they're healthy, Andrew Bogut in the middle is one of the best defensive centers in the league. But I think their offense overshadows what they do defensively.
Yeah. Coach, we want to get you out of here. I appreciate you stopping by. You could have called in, but we thank you for coming in.
Coach, get off your phone.
He does it on the air all the time.
I'm just looking at the score.
He's not going to comment on other scores.
Wizards beat the Spurs tonight.
Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Thank you.
Anyway, so yeah, we'll let you get.
Coach, when you're a coach and a player would pick up a phone. Of course, they didn't have phones back then.
Right.
They did, but they were two pieces. You hold the one in your pocket and you
I had to get the score before we left.
Anyway, thank you. Get out of here because I'm friends with Jan, and I would like to keep it that way.
All right. Thank you very much, guys.
Coach Terry Stotts, our guest here on Trailblazers Courtside.